What if you can walk into a room filled with over 300 partner CEOs, Microsoft insiders, and growth-minded innovators from over 15 countries and walk out with a year's worth of partnerships, pipeline, and strategic clarity? Well, that's exactly what's about to happen in Valencia, Spain at the upcoming IAMCP Illuminate conference, a 3-day, high-intensity, high-trust gathering where the Microsoft partner ecosystem doesn't just talk about collaboration, it does collaboration. In this episode of Profiles in Partnership, we're going behind the scenes with the leaders shaping Illuminate 2025 to unpack how they've engineered an environment where 39% of attendees would leave with new P2P opportunities, satisfaction scores hit 4.8 out of 5, and the networking is so intentional it starts before you even arrive. So whether you're a US company eyeing the EMEA market, a Microsoft partner looking to deepen your ecosystem ties, or a growth leader who knows the right room changes everything, this conversation is your playbook. Joining me today are Paco Racionero and Michiel van Vliet, two respected leaders at the IAMCP Spain chapter, to talk about the upcoming IAMCP Illuminate conference that they're hosting. This is going to be a conversation packed with practical takeaways, so let's jump in. Well, hey, welcome to the podcast today. I'm really glad both of you guys are joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for your invitation, Anthony.
Absolutely. Well, let's start off. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement with IAMCP?
Let me introduce myself. My name is Francisco Racionero, and I am the president of IAMCP Spain, as well as CIO of Alison ITC, company specialized in data platform management, automation, AI readiness. I've been involved with the IAMCP for several years, first an active member and now leading the Spanish chapter. We work with strange collaboration between Microsoft partners, creating business opportunities and help the ecosystem grow exponentially. For me, IAMCP is about building trusted relationships, sharing knowledge, and creating win-win environments where partners can innovate and succeed together.
Excellent. Michiel, how about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Michiel van Vliet, although I live in Spain. I'm Dutch originally, but I've lived here for the last 26 years. I started with IAMCP in 2017, so I've been in the ecosystem, Microsoft ecosystem, since 1995. Worked at Microsoft, and then the then president asked me to come in as vice president to help out, and then I ended up being president shortly after, right? So I was president in Spain, I was president in EMEA, I've been on the global board, and we actually organized the first EMEA event back in 2019 in Madrid, and Paco took over from me as president in Spain.
Excellent. Now, Paco, you're being a little modest here because I know I found out just a little bit about your background that you were a paratrooper for a bit, so which is really cool. Tell us a little bit about that and your journey from going as a paratrooper to a business owner, to then your current role with the IAMCP Spain chapter.
Yeah, I can say, like the film, in a galaxy far, far away, in my youth.
So
I
what,
was
you were a
not
stormtrooper? You were a stormtrooper? Is that I don't know.
I was not yet a business owner, but a paratrooper in the Spanish Air Force. Those years were for me the training grounds more like a Jedi, where discipline, courage, and teamwork were the core of everything we did. Our motto was, I dare. And that is the spirit of Become the Force and has guided me ever since. First an employee, entrepreneur, and now president of the IAMCP. Many lessons have guided me through my career as a business leader and now as president. I know that success comes from the three fundamentals: collaboration, trust, and the ability to adapt to the change. These principles are essential in the business as they were in my earlier life, and they continue to define the way I lead today.
That's fascinating. Well, really appreciate your service, and that's a great story.
He actually started smiling once we got away from IAMCP and started talking about paratroopers, right? So
well, then I don't know. I saw the smile was in a galaxy far, far away. So there's a Star Wars thing going on here. That's fantastic. Now, Talking about what's with the Spain chapter. I mean, and I'm here in the Americas, but one of the things we've seen is that the Spain chapter is one of the more mature ones in Europe. What have been some of the key factors in some of just the growth and just the strong reputation, of the chapter there in Spain?
Well, Spain chapter has been in existence since 2008. So one of the success factors is just succession, right? So you need to find people to take over because sometimes what happens is that a president or a team leaves and then things just die down temporarily, right? Which is kind of a pity. And the other thing, kind of what bred success for us, I think, is when I took over in 2017, Microsoft was still a financial sponsor. So we had Microsoft sponsoring money and we had the membership fees, and then Microsoft stopped sponsoring. So I had to figure out, what my business model was, right? So, and just with the member fees, you can't really make this work. So two things that happened. So first of all, we started looking at, finding permanent sponsors. And the other thing we did is with the yearly event, instead of losing money on the event, on the first biggest event we started making money on the event, right? That was kind of a switch, which then allowed us to do if you have money, you can do much more things, right? You can get professional help in. You don't only depend on volunteer work, right? So that's kind of a really kind of chicken and egg thing, but it's really, really important. So
I'm going to ask you to unpack that a little because you touched on something I think that's really important about succession. And one thing is, I mean,
Yeah.
both you were president for many many years. Paco's now, he's been president for many many years. Especially in a volunteer, run organization. I mean, what can you give us just some nuggets, for our listeners about how to ensure good succession with their chapters?
well, yeah. So I'm sorry, Paco, I'm stealing the limelight here, but so for me, it's very important to find people that are generous, right? That really wanted to make the ecosystem better and that have a long-term view of this, right? So people that, of course, you will get something back from these roles in the IMCP, increased visibility, potential P2P, those kind of things, but that's not instant, right? It's not tomorrow, right? So you need to have people really that are really, really important is willing to put in the work and being, consistent and have tenacity because there's lots of people that jump up and then are, want to do something and that, you have somewhere for 2 or 3 months and then they completely disappear, right? So it's important to have that, that consistency, that tenacity. And that for me was one of the main reasons also for, asking Paco to take over because Paco put in a lot of work and put in a lot of constant work, right? So I think generosity, long-term view, tenacity, and willing to put in the work is for me are the key criteria.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with Michiel, 100%.
Now, and so, Paco, I'm going to put you on the spot now. What are some of the things that you're doing to ensure your succession, whenever that time comes?
Yeah, the idea is that we are looking for, and we are trying to get some persons, and some team that can continue with the work that we began a long time ago. So the idea is one person that is focusing their company, but has to have the focus in work for the others,
Mm-hmm.
create the trust, create the relationship with Microsoft, and continue the trust with Microsoft. So IAMCP is not a press lobby. We are a company working beside Microsoft,
Mm.
trying to come the information, the strategies of the Microsoft to our partners. Maybe it could be like Michiel say many times, a mini MBA about the how to work on Microsoft because it's very complicated. And every
Mm-hmm.
year change, all begin, all the teams where you have the relationship are changing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the one nexus that continue it's INCP and the continuing succession, like Michiel said, in the teams. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the idea is do not leave the association and goodbye and good lucky. No, we can continue in the background helping to the
Uh-huh.
new team to take to take the steering and continue the work.
Just to build on that, right? So same as what happens globally, that the ex-global president stays on the board. So I found myself with completely new team, right? So if you have to start from zero or have to do everything over again, it's difficult, right? So Paco also, when we made this change, he asked me to stay on the board. And on purpose, the first couple of months I disappeared, and then I slowly came back because I have a certain tendency of being very visible, and I needed to give Paco that space, right? But that's important is to make sure that you don't have to change the entire board, right?
Mm-hmm.
So change maybe the president or maybe two roles, but you have people continue that were there before, right? And I think that's the best model. We have the global bylaws, right?
No, that's fascinating. So obviously, talking about with the strong foundation with with people, I love the use of just about with the mini MBA type reference, and I think that's a great transition to like our next thing. And talked a lot to about events and why we're talking today about the upcoming Illuminate conference. So right out of the gate, like for those who haven't attended before, tell us about like what is Illuminate and why has it become such a cornerstone event, for Microsoft partners?
It's as you know, we rotate these things across countries in EMEA, right? So we have had our yearly event for years, so we have a lot of experience running these things.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, it's kind of a place where it's kind of a. I'm not a big fan of the word, but it's kind of a safe space for Microsoft partners, right? So you come together, you have similar partners with similar problems. Well, not similar partners, but similar problems. There's a high level of trust. There's a high level of transparency. There's kind of a no bullshit environment, right? So people really take, it's for them, it's a moment to take some time away, really understand, the Microsoft fiscal year landing, because it's end of October. Microsoft specifically this year is in disarray, right? In the field, it's complete chaos, right? So people
Mm-hmm.
are still changing or not knowing if they have a job, right? So it's kind of a way they kind of relatively early in the Microsoft fiscal year, or relatively early, and then they figure out, okay, where do we stand, right? What's happening? What's important? What's not important? What's the focus? That's one thing, and then the other thing is just a pure level of trust and, well, even friendship that is established, right? So there's let's say there's a pretty frictionless environment where a lot of spontaneous P2P also happens, right? So it's kind of for the 80+% of our partners are repeat offenders, if I can use that word, repeat participants. Most of them even already registered without having seen the agenda because they know what level of quality they will get,
Nice.
right? And for them, it's kind of really okay. Where do we stand this year? And then for partners that are new, it's kind of like a pressure cooker, mini MBA, between the official information presentations, the bar talks, and the other things. They get all this, very
Mm-hmm.
very instant information on how Microsoft really works, right? Because a lot of our
Mm-hmm.
partners are non-managed partners. For example, in Spain, except for the distributors, there's like 11 managed partners, and then Spain has 10,000 partners, I think. Right, so like you said, if you take the former gold, it's like 700. So a lot of these people are not managed, and a lot of these partners never have any contact with Microsoft, right? So this is a place where they have people that know a lot about Microsoft senior folks. You can connect with all of them. You can have, it's probably the best practical learning environment to get your arms around this Microsoft thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One question. Sorry. Let me say you think. What makes Illuminate so special is that it creates a space where not only the business and the innovations really is the personal relationship on the event. So it's very important this kind of relationships because the partners can learn from each other, hear directly from the Microsoft leaders and build trust connection and that drive growth. So it's very, very important. Also for us, for IAMCP Spain, it also has a special meaning because our strength side with LATAM, we see this Illuminate this event as a bridge, not only with EMEA, but also connecting partners across the Atlantic. Well, this global perspective is part of what makes the event such a cornerstone for the Microsoft partner ecosystem. We have in Spain, we have the facility to join Europe, EMEA, and Latin America. So for us, I think we are the real bridge to connect the two worlds.
No, that's fantastic. And both of you, you've hit on several things, just especially around trust, relationships, friendship, I think was a word that was used. So, with your experience in facilitating these events, like how do you help facilitate, that those relationships, those networking? What are some things specifically that you're doing to help, facilitate that so folks come away with a lot of those meaningful relationships from the event?
Yeah, so a key decision we made 6 years ago was to use a platform, an event platform, right? Similar to what Microsoft used to have for WPC, whatever, 10 years ago. And so as soon as you subscribe to the event, you can have access to everybody who's participating. And we also ask, when you register, we also ask we ask certain questions, right? So what are you looking for in the event? Okay, I'm a specialist in web security and I'm looking for P2P, and I have lots of good resources and I want to share them, right? So kind of a little bit what somebody's looking for. So that's a key instrument, right? So and most of these people can do physically maybe 15 meetings, and most people are booked out on the meetings, right? So we do that,
Hmm.
and the event is on purpose, not death by PowerPoint. So we have specific sections where we do meetings only, which sometimes are in parallel with side workshops. There before the keynotes, sometimes after the keynotes. So that's one piece. Then we have, of course, on the Thursday afternoon we have a non-professional ludical thingy where this year we'll go out on this natural lake close to Valencia. We'll put people on boats. Every boat will have 15 people. So, you'll be in a boat for 3 hours. You have to talk to these 15 people. And then the other thing, just a spontaneous networking dinners during the bar, breakfast bar, all these conversations are happening, right? So it's both tacit and non-tacit, networking. That's really, really happening.
Very sure. Because this is not about the marketing messages or generic presentation. It's about honest conversation on priorities, roadmaps, and the direction Microsoft is taking. So the idea is the partners need clarity to plan their own investment, whether in the cloud, or AI, security, or compliance. Having that transparent insight helps them align with Microsoft and anticipate and change they build stronger in their go-to-market strategies. So in the practice, they give the partners a real competitive edge. So
Hmm.
for me, is really the message is not only marketing and generic presentations, is conversation, check the priorities with the other counterpart in the business. So people, at least people.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious because you've built such a strong culture around partnering, and obviously, last year I think you had over 500 individual one-on-one sessions scheduled in Spain's annual event, and so you've done a lot, even your work with the LATAM members and chapters. Um, what how do you cultivate that mindset in IMCP Spain, and what would you recommend for other chapters globally on how to better cultivate that partnering mindset, or that the mentality that, hey, this is cooperative, we can do more together than just compete, right?
So yeah, so I won't say, Eddie, that 100% of the partners coming to the event are proactive P2P. So I would probably say at least half of them, right? Because the first thing, it's on generosity as well, right? So if you are a generous person, you're looking at how you can help somebody else first instead of how you can be helped. I think that's important. And then the other thing which is important is people tend to think they are competition, right? But if you ask 3, 4, 5 follow-up questions and go a level deeper, you kind of figure out that they're not really competition, right? Because they're either on the same customers, or they either don't do exactly the same thing, or in some cases it's very clean, right? It's complementary. But even in cases that on first instance are people or companies seem to be competitors, if you just go a level deeper, you have an open conversation what you really really do, you always find angles where you can work together. And then in the end, depends on the people, right? Are these people that are generally looking for a win-win? And I would say probably at least half of our partners would do that, right? So if you come in with this very aggressive, hey, what am I getting out of this, right? I think that's probably the wrong approach to bring to the table.
No, I think that's great. And to that point, obviously there's the idea of, if I'm a U.S. partner doing business in EMEA, that's a different landscape, right? There's a nuance to it. There's a bunch of different countries, obviously within there. There's different languages, different cultures. So, like for a U.S. company attending the event this year, what do you think will be some of their biggest surprises or biggest learnings about doing business in EMEA, or just connecting with partners in that region?
Well, so there's both challenges and positives, right? So I think the positive is, a Microsoft partner that does modern work is the same in the Netherlands or in US or in Singapore or whatever, right? So you'll find a lot of commonalities just on the basic problem set, right? So one thing you'll find is, of course, customers are a lot smaller in Europe than the US, right? US, everything has a zero more. You have, of course, the language issue, right? So English is a language you can use in the Nordics, Netherlands, and UK easily, and then maybe on large accounts in some countries like Switzerland. But then it kind of stops, right? So you need to adjust to the culture as well. And some countries have better command of English than other countries, and then in some countries it's accepted that you work in English or Spanglish in our case. In other countries, you're kind of expected to speak the local language, like Germany and France. Big countries, big demands, right? So I think it's kind of an interesting thing to find out that there are probably lots of things in common, but then there are different cultural language and cultural things, right? So it's also how people buy and sell is probably different. Maybe less direct than in the US, maybe with an exception of the Netherlands. Right, so we have all these different language and cultural aspects, but in this whole setting, which we're all Microsoft partners, we all speak the same Microsoft language. You understand what you're trying to offer me, right? So that's the easy thing.
Let me say one thing about, because Michiel says about the culture, and I think it's very, very important, the culture, because in Europe we have different cultures. So when you go to market, the culture is absolutely different. Netherlands, Germany, Spain, or French. You need a partner here to know this culture, to get and to know what is the way the people think when they are speaking about business. So for a US partner, I think it's a very good help if they can get some partnership with a local partner to go to the market, because the culture we have. Maybe the language is a problem. Well, but if you and me want to make business and we have an idea, no problem. I am sure we can speak in wherever.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that too, right? Especially when it comes to language. Do you find that, and I think I know the answer to this, but it'd be great to hear a little bit more detail. If I'm a U.S. partner coming into Spain or into France or into Germany, how much more uh, impactful will my interactions be if I can actually speak that local language, right? Does it make a difference? Even if I can speak your language, I'm still an American trying to do business in your country. But does that language kind of bridge a little bit of the gap?
Well, that's a good question, Eddie. I do think that if you want to do business in Germany and France, unless you are working with a very large multinational customers, you have to speak the local language, right? And you have to speak it at a decent level.
Yeah.
And then depending on some countries or clusters of countries, you can work with English because UK, Benelux, Nordics, people speak almost perfect English, right? Even at the butcher. So that's I don't think that's an issue. And then in some other countries, it's more a question of making yourself understood, right? So let's say the level of English in Italy and Spain is lower than in Sweden, right? So for historical reasons, right? So depending on where you focus, I think your strategy needs to be different and needs to be probably flexible. I have a very simplified view of I did travel around the world in EMEA, right? So, and I always say I'm improved Dutch guy because I'm living in Spain and my wife is French, so I'm a little bit European. But I always say, I always take like Brussels as a center, right? South of Brussels, you have like a Romanic culture, right, with all of that, and then east of Brussels, you have like a Germanic country culture, right, and then Netherlands, Nordics, UK. Although Nordics is a bit different, but you have more of an Anglo-Saxon acceptable way of working, right? So that's kind of a very simplistic, simplified way of viewing Europe.
That's super helpful. Thanks.
I agree with Michiel. The language is not the real barrier. I think with you have the intention, you can fall down the barriers.
And how is the culture? Let's just talk specifically about IAMCP Spain and the Spanish members. Are they open to working with partners outside of Spain? And how often do you think that happens right now?
Yes and no. So the Spanish partners tend to be a little bit shy because of the language issues sometimes, right? So that's the thing. This culture thing also has to do with who's less shy. If your language skills are better, you're probably less shy, right? Because so sometimes the Spanish partners are a little bit too shy. And the difference is when you hear them speak in Spanish, they'll go blah, 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 blah. And then when they have to speak in English, you go blah 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 blah. Right? So it's very different energy and emotion and everything, right? So, but then again, as Paco said, right? If you bring business, the language and it doesn't really matter, right? So at least, and particularly these days with AI, anything which is written, it doesn't really matter which language it is, right? So the AI is so perfect that 98% of automatic translation is good, right? So it's just more on the speaking side, and but then again, if you have a good value prop, and if you bring business, and we can even have the conversation in Chinese if you want to, I think.
So I just want one follow up question on that because I'm interested. Like every region or every country tends to have maybe something they do well or they're positioned well within the ecosystem. What is something that Spanish partners are positioned well to offer other partners in the ecosystem in terms of services or whatever that may be? What is that special sauce that you typically find amongst the IMCP Spain members?
Well, so Spain in general is a country that had lots of IT engineers, right? So also because a lot of our large customers have always wanted to custom develop stuff, right? So the large banks, and so there's a lot of very skilled people, technically skilled people, for a very reasonable price, right? Because the pricing differences are also very big in Europe, right? So the most expensive probably is, Switzerland uses Germany as a low cost region, right? But so for example, Switzerland is very expensive. Germany is expensive. Denmark is expensive. And the further we go south, the cheaper it gets, right? So I would state that we can comfortably from Spain compete with the Indian companies almost, right? So there's lots of pricing differences in the region, right? So there might sometimes be a little bit of a language barrier, but I do think Spain has very deep technical knowledge for economically very interesting price. And then of course what we're good at here as well is sector-wise, it's tourism and sun, right? So we have very large tourism organizations. We have partners, Dynamics partners that specialize in tourism. We were one of the earlier countries to move to the cloud because of the crisis we had. We had a very deep crisis coming on from 2008 to 2012, right? So even the government moved to the cloud at a much higher speed than in some of the Germanic countries, for example. Right, so I would say there's a very high level of technical knowledge here.
Oh, excellent, thank you.
So one question I was going to have, just as we're talking about, bringing back to the Illuminate, how can companies, and if you have a story, that would be great to share, but like, how can companies use Illuminate specifically as a launch pad for some of those cross-border partnerships or even like M&A exploration?
Well, yeah, and of course, thanks to Eddie, we will have an M&A boutique IT exchange that works with IAMCP. Who will be there, right? So we'll be holding keynotes and workshops, and then we're meeting with people. We did that last year as well, but that was a local boutique, M&A boutique. So different ways, right? So I think it's just having as much meetings as you can, right, with companies from different countries, and just the only thing is depends on what you are looking for, right? So what we can't say is, okay, well, I want to meet a company from Germany that is specialized in fabric. Or maybe they're not there. I don't know. Right? So it's more.
And somebody can use the I'm sorry, sorry to interject, but like you were talking earlier about there's the platform for like that networking platform. So somebody can get that specific in that platform to help try and find it. Go ahead. Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah. So we kind of pre-selected this. Sorry, but we kind of pre-selected this with a list of questions we asked, right? So just so people clarify that they can explain what they're looking for. We have a marketplace as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you can study the company on the internet, right? You can study the person who's coming, LinkedIn, and whatever, right? So I would suggest if you spend money to come overseas for the event and your time, right? I would expect you to study, who am I going to talk to? What do they do?
Mm-hmm.
Company
Mm-hmm.
do? How senior are they, right? So it's a lot of the onus is on you, right? So a lot of spontaneous things will happen, right? But you
Mm-hmm.
can plan for a lot of these things to happen as well. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
Paco.
But not only for M&A agencies, because many times we know companies that join between them and go together, go join the company, buy the company, sell the company, or something like that. And at first, INCP events are in the origin. Are in the origin because you first begin to collaborate. To one collaboration. After that, we think in more things and much more real collaboration. Business plan together, commercial strategy together, and then what is the next pay and the next pass? Get married, buy, sell, join between them. So I think this is, and Michiel, you know as me, is very several companies that begins in the INCP, each one in different paths, and at least join the same path, and they today are working together. And so the problem, we lost one member of the association in Spain because when they joined together.
So the thing is, so the difficulty is when you, in my opinion, right, when you buy a services company without knowing the company, it's always very difficult to understand what you're really buying, right? But if you have known and partners for years, because you're in the IMCP and you know what they're good at and what they're not good at, and you know if they can be trusted, and right. So that's so we have some of our IMCP members with outside funding that have become consolidators, right? And they know who to go after because they know that, for example, Paco's company is a specialist in data, and they've been doing this for 20 years. And they're one of the 4 companies, maybe in Spain, that know more about data, right? So they have all of this implicit knowledge that they know who they want to, consolidate with, right? And that's because of their the years of engagement with the IMCP.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One question then. So I know we've talked like with the upcoming Illuminate event. Obviously, we've talked about like the networking, just the tremendous opportunities. There we've talked about. I think the use of the mini MBA. Microsoft's understanding kind of the programs and how to navigate that. What about? Are there just going to be any emerging technologies or business models that you expect to dominate the conversations this year?
You want a political answer or an honest answer? Um, the
I don't
political,
know.
political the all of frontier AI firms. I'm still trying to figure out what frontier is, but I think that's just a label that they put on it this way. Just invented, but it's still I think we're still trying to get our arms as an ecosystem all around AI and how we as partners can make money around AI, right? And that's always the challenge with Microsoft because Microsoft always needs to push the latest things, right? As an ISV, that's as a partner, you always need to understand, okay, how far do I jump in, right? Because I need to keep on making money and do the new stuff, right? So there's always
Mm-hmm.
equilibrium you have to find all the time, right? It's happening with cloud, it's now happening with AI, right? So you can't, if you're too much ahead of things, you probably, maybe you're losing money. If you're too far behind of it, then Microsoft will say, "Hey, bye bye. I don't need you anymore." Right? So you need to find that equilibrium, right? So I think AI is still very much will be, the key thing, right? So, but I think that nobody knows really how the world is changing, or who will be the major, what will be the major business models, or who's making money in AI, right? Because you have your OpenAIs or LLM providers, then you have your hyperscalers, then you have your specific vertical companies, then you have the services companies, right? So I think we're all still trying to figure out. And sure, Microsoft wants us to jump in full ahead in AI, part of our role as IAMCP is helping partners understand how far they should jump and when. Right?
Yeah. And so, how are you at the conference? Is there going to be a lot of discussion around that? I mean, are there main sessions, breakout sessions? How are you envisioning, helping folks navigate some of that stuff?
Yeah, so we have a couple of Microsoft people from Corp, but these are more the program people, right? So, and what we normally also have, we have parallel sessions around solution areas, right? So, to be honest, we're still filling these up as we speak. So normally we'll get, sessions around Azure, sessions around, security. And this year, of course, the very interesting one is talking about business model is, business applications and modern work being together, right? So I think we're also still trying to figure out how is that going to work, right? That would be great to have somebody from Microsoft explain the real business rationale, right? Because Microsoft will always say, well, we spoke to customers, we spoke to partners, and they've asked us to do these things. And I'm not sure if I believe that, right? That's kind of the level of course, nobody at Microsoft will give during a keynote the honest answer, but if you maybe catch one of those guys at the bar, you probably get the honest answer, right?
Yeah, or the boat, right? The bar or the boat.
So so of course the very big reorg that happened, field reorg that happened was like 2018, but this year is worse than other years compared to other years, right? So there's a lot of different regions been set up, a lot of middle management has been taken out, a lot of confusion inside Microsoft as well, right? So I hope that when we have our event end of October, that all that has come down and we can explain it to people and then explain the rationale and explain who's sitting where.
Okay, I'm going to ask this kind of a more of a soft question around. And keep in mind, I've never been to Spain, so this might be a really dumb question after I ask it. But why Valencia?
Let me explain. So Valencia is more just a beautiful location. So 1 year ago, we suffered flows in the region, very heavy flows with more than 200 deaths in the flows. The DNA that we suffered was incredible. So I am living in Valencia for the last 25 years. I was born in Madrid, so I live for, I say, 25 years here. When the board, we begin to think and where we can prepare the next event, all the board think about Valencia could be the best option to the new event with Illuminate also. Valencia is maybe should be the third or the fourth city in the Spain. So we have the best communication, maybe very well communication by plane, by ship, by train, with high velocity train. So it's a nexus of the transport in Spain and internationally. So our beaches are incredible. The weather in last October will be very good weather, only with a light coat or something like that. And so, but when we have this disaster, I could see things that I want to share with my colleagues. This is the younger people, the younger people, because they let his offices, her houses, her institutes, their college, their schools to help the others. So many times we see the younger people, we see the youngs with Instagram, the selfies, this kind of focus that we put in the right people. So in Valencia, in 2 days, all this changed. 200 deeds, 200. Village absolutely devastated. And the next day, a legion, more than 10,000 people helping without the government. No, the government arrived after. The people go to help to other people. So this character is for me the most incredible lesson of resiliency, of even which maybe reason to try to get the Illuminate here. I want to share with my colleagues who is Valencia, who is this city. And they go, who? No, what is this city? Who? Because this city has personality. It has their own personality, and can learn a lot of things about the character of the Valencians.
So just to build on what Paco is saying, right? So Valencia is the third biggest city in Spain. Also happens to be on the coast, right? And Spain is not like, although we have a big tourism industry and event industry, it is not like the US where you can host events for lots of people everywhere, right? So, and when we select hotels, we have to start a year before, right? So basically, we were in the process of selecting hotels when this whole flooding, the Dana happened, right? So a lot of mistakes were made. A lot of political infighting. People were not warned in time, and you would not expect a modern society to have floodings all of a sudden and in a big city and have 220 people killed, right? Because normally what happens is, it's a habit that people in Valencia, they have the cars in the parking garage below sea level, and when they hear it's going to rain, they take out the cars because it might flood, you might a little bit, right? So, and they did the same thing. The only thing is nobody warned them that the flooding was coming so fast, right? So all these people got to get out of their cars, the parking garage, and they didn't get out anymore, right? So we felt emotionally obliged to do this event in Valencia, right? Just to share that and maybe have some positive impact on the economy of Valencia. Little impact, but any impact is good.
Guys, that's a fascinating story. I did not expect that as an answer. In all honesty, when I asked the question, I thought I was just going to be talking about just being on the coast, the how beautiful it is, the culture, the food, all those things that you would hear normally under like touristy type things. But that's a fascinating.
One thing,
Yeah.
let me say one thing. Valencia was selected the best city in the world for life.
Work-life balance, or work
Really?
to live. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure who does it, but there's these international organizations that figure out which are the best cities to live, right? From health, financial, work life, and everything, right? Food.
Wow.
You always get like Toronto and Vancouver, and I think
Yeah.
we had like 3 Spanish cities in the top 4 or something. So Valencia
Wow.
and somewhere
No,
else.
that's fascinating. Well, and then too, just to even go back to the earlier story about just the story of resilience and how I think translating that into as I just think about even just kind of like in going back to the event, like okay, as a thing to come away with just the importance of that, having that tenacity, having that resiliency, especially as a small company where you just got you're grinding it out every day. What a what a powerful story, and just even too about if I understood correctly, Paco, where you were saying how there was you had all these thousands of people kind of come together like even before the government did. I mean that's P2P, right? That's partner, people collaborating together to create something, of tremendous value.
Specific point that Paco is making is that we as business owners tend to be, mostly male, older, and sometimes we complain about all these young people, right? Young millennials and Generation Z. And the first ones that went out the next day and helped clean up and go there were 16 to 25-year-olds, right?
Wow.
Every day,
Wow.
going out again, going out again, going out again, helping.
Wow. No, that's a great story. I'm really glad you shared that. So thank you. Eddie?
Yeah, no, I was just saying it's a great way to find some common ground when you said, Michiel, you just talked about, hey, we used to complain about the younger generations, but they were the first ones out there. That's a great common place to come together and find more ways or more things that you have in common, and maybe the gap isn't as big as everybody thinks it is, right? Which I think is super important. I do have a question for Paco though. So you said you've been living in Valencia for 25 years. I kind of want to know how you found Valencia. Did you jump out of a plane and land in Valencia and then decide you're going to stay there for the rest of your life, or how did that all come about?
I live here for love. My my wife is from Valencia, so as you know, A man is not from he born, is where his wife born. So this is the real case for my own. No, when I live here, I can create my own company and then create and to be the freedom to involve in several projects, not only in business project, only in other kind of projects. And so this is the consequence of this travel I took several years ago. So I think this is the moment for not to help Valencia, without to show who is Valencia, who is the new generation, because we are mature people, we are mature men, so we are in my case, you are younger than me, but maybe I am in the finish of my professional career. I am look back who is behind me. So I can see right now behind us, behind all of this, are people with push, with incredible, with amazing strong to continue with the business, to continue to grow this country, this region. So to grow with the world at least.
Yeah, I think what's really very cool about this conversation is we've kind of come full circle, where we started talking about success for IMCP Spain, about being the continuity, right? Finding leaders who were generous and willing to put in the time and make the effort. And now we're talking about the success of a city or the success of the country being in the younger generation and kind of this handover to another group over a period of time, and just knowing that there are generous people who are willing to make the time and commit to helping Valencia, but helping Spain in general. I think that's a cool story.
It's the simple. It's the simple for the others.
Well, it's easy to complain about the next generations, right? So because we have our worldview at our age, right? We know we expect certain things that might not be normal for them, and I think this is a very good lesson for us to understand. Hey, these people can be motivated. They're just motivated in a different way, right? So you don't, right? But it's so for us in the crisis, it was a really positive surprise, and I think specifically Paco kind of changed his whole view on the world positively, right? So we tend to complain sometimes about next generations, but they just have a different worldview.
And I think coming back to your bit of advice earlier is, be willing to ask that next level questions, right? Go 3 or 4 questions deep, and you'll find that common ground. You find what motivates, and you'll find that you have some things in common. I think that's an awesome lesson for all of us. It's really cool.
So we are in my generation. My generation is I don't know, is X generation, but I don't remember. Well, I am 60s. I am 62 2 years in the next month. So we live the transformation from the analogic to the digital world. So if my generation could understand these real changes, these incredible changes, the only thing that we have to understand is how the new generation think and will think how to steering, how to go with the new business or with our business in this legacy.
So I have this is a little bit more. It's going to be a combination question. Well, it's going to be an IMCP question, but now that we've got this really cool conversation about just life in general and Spain and Valencia, so I'm going to ask 2 things. Michiel, you've come to Spain, right? This is your home now, but you came there. What is the biggest benefit of being in Spain, being in this culture and with the people that you work with, are friends with, and that. And then secondly, IMCP as a community, what is the biggest thing that you've gotten from that community? And that question is for both you and Paco.
So yeah, so for me there is First, as a physiological thing, right? So every day I wake up and I open the shutters and the sun is shining, which is quite, has a different. Really, I think it has a physical effect on you.
Yeah.
I come from the Netherlands with lots of rain and gray skies, specifically gray skies, right? So I think that's very important, and that also makes for people being out on the street, right? The Spanish people are out all the time. They're out on terraces, they're out eating, drinking, shopping. They're outside, right? So life is outside. So that for me was a big difference. Then another big difference is the importance of family and friends. Right. So I remember I was as an expat first at Unisys, and my daughter was in the hospital, and I came to work because I'm a Dutchman. I came to work, and then the gentleman said, I told him what was happening. He said, "Well, why are you at work? Right? Go to the hospital." Right. And then during the next couple of days, I had everybody calling me, the general manager, the finance director. Everybody was genuinely interested figuring out how my daughter was doing. Right? So it's much more of in the US you work a lot and then you live. In the Netherlands you work maybe less than the US, but in Spain it's kind of that balance, right? So and the same thing goes for customer relations, right? So it's difficult here to sell because in the Netherlands you can go to a potential customer, who will have a parking space waiting for you. The customer will receive you at the exact time. They will give you a cup of coffee. They will listen to your speech, and then will say if they're interested or not. Very efficient, right? In Spain, it's a lot more inefficient, right? Because you have to do a lot of pre-meetings, and then But once you have gone through that, the relation is almost, I wouldn't say like family, but much stronger, right? So there's a lot more initial barrier, but then the relation. So I think here in Spain in general, the relationships are a lot stronger, right? So it's very important to get that trust, to build that relation. It's much less transactional in the Netherlands or in the US, I think. So that for me, and I kind of forgot the second part of your questions. I think, Eddie.
Yeah, it's more about the IMCP community.
Oh
What
yeah,
is was the one thing that
well, so same thing here, right? So it's, I think it might be more difficult initially to have a direct business conversation because you will start talking about football or some other things, or right. But as soon as you have that level of trust, there's this openness and long-term view on things, right? So I think that's the same. It's the same in business here as well, right? So maybe initially more work to be done, but once you've gone through that, it's more long term. It's more permanent.
awesome? And Paco, what about you?
Yeah. I agree with Michiel from his point of view. I think in Spain, from the relation is incredible. So there is a thought about if you know Otto Bismarck, the big general from Germany. He said one time, Spain is the stronger country in the world because they are trying to break the country for hundreds of years and they couldn't. So why is it? Because the Spanish are, are there. So we maybe are not comfortable with our country, with our politician, like everyone, like everybody in the world. Yeah, but at least we row in the same direction. We row in the same direction because the direction is not the country, is not the region, is not the INCP, is not the business, it's the family. It's the family, it's the friendship. If you are my friendship, we work together because I trust in you. Maybe I will need a NDA, agreement on something like that because legally we need to have this kind of documents. But for many times is for me if I don't have feel with you, I will not with you. I will not work with you. I need to shake your hand and see your eyes. Maybe you can lie me, of course. But I need to trust in my counterpart in the business. And this is the INCP. In the INCP, we see to the eyes. We see to the eyes. We shake our hands. And I will see the next year, and I will see the next month in a workshop, in another kind of event. So if I trust in you, I will work with you. If I don't trust in you, really, we will continue my path. And if I see you the next time, we will drink a beer and go on.
And there's this prejudice, right, which exists around Spain or Southern Europe. It's like when I speak to Germans and they know, or it's Netherlands, or people from Netherlands somewhere else, and they say, "Yeah, you're in Spain. Oh, siesta, siesta. Ha 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 ha. Spanish are so lazy." To be honest, I work since I came to Spain. I work a lot more hours than I did in the Netherlands. Because no, the system is more efficient. So when the first time I went to the US, I stuck my head out at 5 p.m. and there was nobody left in the office. I went, whoops, right? In the Netherlands, it's at 6. I came home at 7. In Spain, you make very long days from Monday to Thursday. Friday is a little bit more, easier. But the thing is, when you live in richer and more efficient systems like, the Netherlands and Germany and Finland, right? You can afford to work less hours. But there's this old prejudice still that, in Southern Europe, there's people are lazy and they work less. No, they work more.
It's great perspective and insights. Thank you guys for sharing. That's awesome.
Yeah, so kind of as we're wrapping up, I mean, as we've talked, covered the gamut about, relationships, networking, mini MBA content, the beauty of in the story of the area. I kind of would like to, just kind of wrap this up. There was an interesting data point, coming back to Illuminate, where the post-event survey showed that 39% of attendees increased their P2P opportunity pipeline coming through. Can you share maybe just a story or an example of a partnership that was born, there at Illuminate and turned into real business?
Yeah, I can. Well, there's several, right? But for example, I just had lunch with one of the partners that they're a company that was created. They were a spin-off force created 4 years ago. They're a specialist in Microsoft Cloud security. They have their own SOC, and they came to Illuminate, I think, for the first time 2 years ago, right? So, and since then they have built a fantastic P2P business, right? Because they have a very clear model, right? They only do Microsoft Cloud security SOC. They don't get into, all the things that the other partners might do, right? And they have established really, really, really trusted and transparent relationships because of our event, right? So, and I think their model is now, 90% indirect. And of course, that's easier when you have a clear and non-competing thing that you do when you're one of three
Mm-hmm.
in Spain, and right, so it's easier. But there's different scales of gray. And then the other example, I think it's for us, it was a very important example, is Arrow, right? Arrow, the distributor. So Arrow reached out to when I was still president in Spain and said, "Well, hey, Michiel, we've been trying to get better at business with Microsoft. We had external consultants in, we're not getting anywhere." And I said, come to some of our events, right? So they came, they started learning, and they went to our big event, and they became our first platinum yearly sponsor because they went through this mini MBA, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
With us, understanding Microsoft, what to do, what not to do, right? Because Microsoft has many priorities, right? It does many things, and the trick is figuring out what you should be doing and where you should jump, and maybe where you should wait a little bit, right? And if you only go as a newbie to Microsoft, you will speak to a person that has a agenda, and he will want you to jump, or she will want you to jump, and you will think, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft." Right? So my first questions to all of the people I work with all the time is, as a general manager, is also, Microsoft told me this and this, and I will say, well, hold on, the guy that opens the door or Satya Nadella, right? And let's figure out in between. And so I think those are two, and Arrow has been our platinum
Yeah.
sponsor since the beginning. And the great thing that happened is because we started doing a lot of things with Arrow, so all of the other disties got FOMO, right? Fear of missing
Mm-hmm.
out. And so then we
Mm-hmm.
got ED Cynics, we got V-Valley, we got some of the other guys in as well, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's basically because of the learning that they did through our events.
I can say, I can tell you, for example, my own sample. In my history in the IAMCP, I have worked and work right now with partners in Spain, a lot of them in Spain, in Italy, Netherlands, Sweden, Finland. So maybe not all are in the INCP, but in Spain, the focus is because in my case, I specialize in data, in relational data. So I am complementary and I am not in compete with others. So they can work with us, and working together, really working together like a only company, But and this is absolute success for us because we work with, I think, more than 10 partner-to-partner companies, and the 80% at least are in the IAMCP. And if they weren't in the IAMCP before, I tried to join to the IAMCP, of course.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, Paco and Michiel, this was a wonderful conversation. You guys have been really generous with your time, and I really appreciate having you on. The podcast, IMCP Profiles and Partnership. Last question is, what's the best way? How can people find out about you and connect with you?
You mean for the event?
Well, both. I'll have the event URL in the show notes, but just for you guys individually.
So probably easiest you find us on LinkedIn, right? Because we're both daily on LinkedIn, and then we can share emails or whatever, right? So just type in our names, and mine is pretty. If you search for my name in Spain, you will only get one hit.
What's the one lone Dutchman in Spain? Is that what you're saying?
With this name and surname, right? So I actually created a LinkedIn group. I found all the Michiel van Vliets in the world.
Oh, really? Okay.
LinkedIn group between all of us. So.
That's fantastic.
Also, my name is easy also to recognize in LinkedIn. So if you write to LinkedIn page from IAMCP in Spain, our incredible marketing team will answer you in a few minutes, maybe. So it's very important for us because our team is incredible. The work that the team for supporting the IAMCP all the year. And this work is incredible for us. The organization of the events, the organization of the workshop, the organization of the agendas, really. Let me say that we can deploy all of the events of the work that we developed during all the year because we have the best team for this kind of things.
Excellent.
Awesome. That's great.
Well, I appreciate you both. Enjoy the rest of your day, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you.
Wow, that was such a fantastic episode. I really appreciate both Paco and Michiel just for spending their time. For those that are listening, Illuminate just isn't an event. It's a catalyst, the kind of place where strategy meets serendipity and where the right handshake can change your fiscal year. If you want to see the full agenda, explore the networking platform, or secure your spot in Valencia this October, head to the link in the show notes. And today's conversation sparked ideas for your own partnership strategy. Share this episode with a colleague who needs to hear it. But before we kind of wrap up, I definitely want to touch on a couple of things that really stood out to us. Eddie?
Yeah, I think one of the things that stood out to me was the culture, right? The idea of how they partner and ask that next level set of questions, right? That's not just about what you do, but who you are and how they build relationships over time. I think Michiel mentioned, you might spend more time in Spain up front creating these, but when you come out of that work, you have a friendship that you can build upon in many different ways. And that was a really great takeaway because I do believe that can work just about anywhere.
Yeah, there was a ton of really great lessons that I took away from just this interview. But one that really hit me pretty good was, also, not only am I a principal in dynamics marketing, I help, host this podcast, but I'm also as a chapter president of the Austin IMCP chapter, just hearing about like their success in growing it. From, just the emphasis with the succession planning, how he thought about the income model, how they went about getting sponsors, to which then led to helping them hire professional help, and just that whole mindset of saying, look, this isn't, yes, we're volunteers, but we're going to approach this like a business. I thought was really valuable and just kind of hit me pretty close, just being as a chapter president kind of in the thick of it myself.
Yeah, and to add to that, Michiel talked about being very intentional with IAMCP Spain's success and really, identifying and nurturing the next set of leaders so that there's no drop off once there's a change in leadership. I think that's really important. And then when we brought it full circle towards the end of the conversation, we talked about that same concept, but in terms of the country and of Valencia itself, and how there was maybe a perception of the older folks like Paco and Michiel about, millennials and Gen Z. But then through that unfortunate event that happened with the flooding last year, how these two kind of came together and how they saw that those two, the millennials and Gen Z step up in terms of helping and putting effort into the community. And I thought it was a very special moment. And I think that's not only how a city and a country build and grow and continue good things, but it's also a blueprint for what we can do within chapters in this community.
For everyone listening, here are your next steps. You need to register for this exciting event. You can by visiting IAMCP.org and click on the Illuminate banner on the homepage, or visit the URL for the conference that's in the show notes. Thanks again for joining us on this episode of IAMCP Profiles and Partnership, powered by Dunamis Marketing. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and find it useful and inspiring. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. One of the best ways to partner for success is to join IAMCP, a community of Microsoft partners who help each other grow and thrive. IAMCP members can find and connect with other partners locally and globally and access exclusive resources and opportunities. So whether you're looking for new customers, new markets, or new solutions, IAMCP can help you achieve your goals. To learn more, visit the website at www.iamcp.org.